Hey y'all, Jim here with Sunrise Farm. Welcome back to part two of this high tunnel video. I don't want to necessarily call it a series, but two halves. The first part, which is part one of this video series, is in the description below. It was the review on my new Guardian high tunnel from Farmer's Friend. Guardian is just simply the name that they've designated to it, and it is a 21 by 96 high tunnel. This thing's already been a tremendous blessing. And in part two, today's video, we're going to discuss how I got this high tunnel 100% free. Yes, no, that wasn't a clickbait title. 100% free. So let's talk about it. Well, all right, let's talk about how I got this high tunnel 100% free. The very first thing you might think about is a grant. Not exactly. If you're familiar with the NRCS, then you have some awareness about what I'm getting ready to walk through. However, let's talk about it. This high tunnel came through an NRCS program. Now, this is for farms only, basically. And when I say farms, that does not necessarily exclude somebody that runs a homestead farm. What I mean by a farm is it's under the USDA, so the Department of Agriculture, and the NRCS means Natural Resources Conservation Service. And so they have a program within that that specifically deals with a high tunnel and some other things called EQIP. But at any rate, the FSA, which is the Farm Service Agency, also part of the U.S. Department of Agriculture, controls the, let's just say, the numbers or the logistics side of the game, and the NRCS handles doling out certain monies. They operate together, but there are two different distinct things they do. First and foremost, to get into the NRCS programs, you have to have a registered farm. What do I mean by registered farm? Well, you can't just have a homestead and sell a handful of vegetables on a roadside stand or something without having a actual business license and a registered farm with your state. In this case, it'll also trigger a registered farm number with the U.S. government. So you have to have an actual farm business, which is something you can start at any time. Whether you have one now or not, you can start it at any time by simply contacting your local FSA NRCS office. Often I have found those offices to be either in the same building or extremely close together. I don't know how it would work in every state within the United States, but here in South Carolina where I live, they pretty much have an office in every county. It just so happens where I live is a very rural area and a very rural county. I happen to live, even though we only have less than 10,000 people, I think it still is in our city, our little town, if you will. We live in the biggest town within that county, and the office is only about 5 miles from my house. It makes it convenient, but nonetheless, the FSA office is where you have to begin by getting a registered farm number. I know this will sound like a lot of logistics, a lot of paperwork, a lot of perhaps phone calls and or back and forth. It is. But if you want anything out of a program, a grant, or shall we even say the government, you have to jump through hoops to kind of get there. And it's a waiting game. So I want to say all that up front, but I also want you to see and know, which is why I started with the high tunnel, showing you this high tunnel in this video first, because I want you to know what's possible. Absolutely 100% possible. And I didn't mention it when I was talking about the high tunnel from Farmer's Friend, but they actually have a section in each one of their high tunnels that talks about whether it meets the what was 2025, but now will be 2026 NRCS guidelines, meaning there's a obvious minimum standards that the high tunnel has to meet in order to qualify under their program, because you can get these high tunnels from any manufacturer. So whoever you choose, it doesn't matter, except for it has to meet the NRCS standards. But on Farmer's Friend, they tell you whether it does or doesn't, and even give you links to those standards. So going back to what I was saying, once you register your farm, become an actual farm business with the FSA, at that same time, or you can actually start with the NRCS, but just know you can't get any funding until you become a farm business. But the NRCS is the one that has programs. Now, I will, if I say it, I might have said it talking, I don't think I said it talking about the high tunnel itself, but if I say it ever in any of my videos about grants, while there are grants, absolutely, everything we have gotten so far or are getting is through the NRCS, and they are called cost share programs. And we'll get to what that means. But, so in their cost share programs, there are a multitude of things that you can apply for depending on your farm situation. There are different categories of criteria that you might meet. For instance, the one we met the easiest, and you can actually meet more than one, but realistically you only need one category to either jump ahead of the line or to the top of the list or what have you in respect to funding. But that is the category we were in, is new and beginning farmers. This is really only our, even technically when we crossed over into having an actual farm business number, this is only going to be our third year of farming. So I have said I've done farming for 3 years, but the first year wasn't really accurate because A, I lost 70% of what I did to deer, and B, it wasn't an actual business at that point. So this is all going to be our third year in farm business. So we registered with the FSA, and then we met with our local NRCS person who came out and did a field inspection to see what we did, how we did it, what we were asking for or needed. He would offer suggestions as to the programs that he thought might benefit us, how big we were, and like what were we doing to help, if you will, help the ground, help the earth, and or in a sense of what is our potential of income's not really the right way to look at it, or sales, but what are we doing with it? Meaning, if we're farming our backyard garden and hoping to sell, make a living selling out of a backyard plot, probably not going to happen, and they're probably not going to give you what you're asking. I don't know. I'm not speaking on their behalf. I just know what I went through, so you can take that with a grain of salt. The first thing I would do is just call them and ask them. Schedule a farm tour or a farm visit, and they'll come out and talk to you and inspect what you got and just go from there. It doesn't hurt, is what I'm trying to say. Either they can help you or they can't. But how do you know unless you ask? So I say all of that to say this too. Know that this process can take a long time. So patience is key. When my wife, my family, and I started thinking about ways that we could get things for the farm and doing research, we came across the NRCS. Plus, now I've known other farmers that are using them. So, it's just become part of our farm situation here in America, as far as trying to get things for the farm. So, I'm going to go all the way back to 2024. It was around February, March, which more or less was starting the spring season for us in 2024, that we decided to contact the NRCS office and just basically what I said, see what could be done. And at the point we first met out here, my farm was half the size that we're currently doing. So I was only farming about, at that moment, about 3/4 of an acre, and I still qualified. So please don't think that size in totality matters. It just, a lot of variables come into it. It is not solely for fruits and vegetables. Again, there are some conservation fundings, regenerative farm fundings. There are some that involve flowers and other things, but the majority of it, from my understanding and research, is around fruits and vegetables. There's even some for livestock, uh, namely interior fencing and various things. So, like I said, it's not exclusively for farm vegetables, but it mostly is. I will say the high tunnel, I don't know if they would give it to you if you operated a flower business, a flower farm. I really don't. I don't know either way. But you must grow in them. I can't set it up as a greenhouse to do seedling plants in. I can't put raised beds in it. And there's other stipulations, but I must grow in it. And these are things they will check for a couple of years at least. So going back to what I was saying, in 2024, we started our process by contacting the NRCS office. And it was at that point, to be honest with you, what I told you earlier about the FSA, about getting a farm number, I didn't even know. So they walked me through it, and that's how we ended up getting the whole thing going. Excuse me there, cotton mouth. But so he came out. The fella came out. There's only one fella in my community, my county, that does it. And he came out, and we walked through everything, and we talked about what we were trying to do and what we needed and what we wanted. And he said, okay. He said, now again, this was around February of March of 2024. He said, okay, well, we can start some of the paperwork now. He said, but just know that we can't turn the paperwork in until the deadline, which was the middle of October, I believe, is like their annual turnover deadline. So you have to have everything in by this specific timing. I would assume that same time as nationwide. I'm not 100% sure. I mean, because it's a government nationwide program, I would assume it is, but you know what assume does sometimes. Um, so we had to have all the paperwork in, literally signed and everything, by October of 2024. Um, I'll just say one of the side note caveats to getting something like a high tunnel, because it's a relative permanent structure on this property, they will require, if you don't happen to be the owner of the property, they will require that you have a signed affidavit from the owner of the property in order to put down such a structure. So if you're leasing or renting property, um, it'll be a little more difficult, but not impossible. Excuse the rudeness of the plane flying overhead, right? We have a little community airport not far from my house, so I get that often enough. But anyway, so okay, we put in all this paperwork for, it was 7 different programs we put in the paperwork for in October of 2024. We weren't going to find out, because again, it's an annual thing in the government. We weren't going to find out whether we got any of them until around February of 2025. And that's about when we found out, late February of 2025, somewhere in there. What did we find out on the 7 programs? Well, amazingly enough to us, we got them all. We got all 7 that we requested. Now, what do those 7 include? They include the high tunnel, obviously. They also include, and you may caught a small glimpse of them because they're sitting off to the side of my high tunnel right now. But we also got one for a new well for just the farm. And that's something I'll be shooting along a video next, because here in a few days they'll be back to get started. They just dropped off their equipment over the holidays. But so we got a well. Now that well, actually, they consider two parts. They consider the well, the part that's driven into the ground, and they consider the pump or the drive housing. Don't ask me why. They consider it two different things, so it's two different programs. Um, so anyway, that's three of the 7 programs. We got one for irrigation for the farm. So after I get the well installed, and as time rolls on, we'll be putting in the whole irrigation system for the entire farm. That's going to be quite a lengthy process as well. But the good news is about these programs, I guess I should also say, is that once you get a program, those programs have quite a long life when you must complete them in order to utilize the program. I think I had 3 years to build a high tunnel. No way was I waiting 3 years to build a high tunnel, but I'm just saying I think they give you up to 3 years to actually use the money and build the high tunnel. So we got irrigation that'll be installed, and that irrigation comes in 2 steps. There's the ground irrigation, or I guess you would say, no, let me rephrase that. Underground irrigation, meaning all of the mainline piping. And then there's the drip tape and sprinkler style irrigations that you may be using in your rows, or what I'll end up installing eventually as an overhead in this high tunnel. What were some of the other ones? Some of the other ones were small, like a few $100 for compost. Well, my compost costs a lot more, but hey, anything's good. Got one for conservation on. I have 5 years to plant one of my plots in wildflowers, or somewhere a plot of wildflowers, and they give you the dimensions of the plot size that it has to be. But that helps with pollinators and various things. And seems like I'm missing one, but I can't pull it to the top of my head. But anyway, there was, oh no, one of them, I'm sorry, one of them got removed. So I think it was 6. I think I just said 6. Either way, they gave us what we asked for, and here we are. So once you get the approval, again, we're talking about, we started talking to them and thinking of this in February, March of 2024. We did not get approved until February, March 2025. And then we had to wait on the contracts to be literally kind of ready to be in their office. And so once those were ready, you can go and talk to them about what project you're going to do when, kind of thing, and in what order. You're not bound to start any of them immediately. And like I said, most of them have a wide shelf life of years that you can utilize if you're not going to do it right away. But I wanted this high tunnel going. So what I did, first of all, I should say here, when you're talking about a cost share program, what does that mean? Okay, well, a cost share program, and I'll just use the high tunnel as an example, but all of their programs are based on the same thing. They have a set criteria of what goes in to a project, i.e. a high tunnel. And they factor in the type of high tunnel, the average cost of a high tunnel from various companies, labor costs, because most people don't put it together themselves. Most people are going to have somebody install it. And I'm sure there's some other factors too, an average across states because of pricing and deliveries and travel and what have you. So what they end up doing is breaking this down into a square footage. So you get X amount of money per square footage up to, it was an odd number. It was like 1,660 square feet or something like that. It was a little over 1,600 square feet. So you get X amount of money up to this square footage. Now, you don't have to put in a high tunnel of that square footage. Just know, and you don't have to stop at a high tunnel of that square footage. Just know that's the maximum amount of money. Whatever that contract number is that they give you per square foot, that's what they're going to give you. It doesn't matter what you spend or how you do it. That's what they're going to give you. This high tunnel happens to be slightly, I think it's 2,080 square feet, maybe it was. It's slightly over 2,000 square feet. Got another overhead plane coming, so pause for a commercial interruption. All right, so going back to the fact that that cost share program is based on X amount of square footage, it has a maximum dollar amount allowed to it. I'm not going to get into that specific dollar, A, because it's unnecessary, and B, it's going to change anyway, year over year, process over process. So the dollar amount is not the relevant part. What is the relevant part is knowing how much they're giving you grand total in that contract for anything up to 1,600 square feet. So what I did is, knowing that number of the contract, because that number won't change. They're not going to give you, well, they'll give you less if your square footage is less than 1,600, because you're only going to get it per square foot. But if you went over like I did, the max you'll get is the max of the contract. So that's what I was using, the number that was max of the contract. And so what that meant is I had a set dollar amount that I could utilize. And so I started looking at high tunnels to figure out basically the best of what I wanted and make it kind of fit within that number, the budget number from the program. So I had already been looking at these farmer friend high tunnels for, quite frankly, already a couple of years. And it wasn't too long, I think, before I got approved for the grant, or see, I said grant, the cost share program that they came out with this, the farmer's friend that is, came out with this Guardian high tunnel that I have. That was really what I was looking for. The exact type of high tunnel this is, as far as its structure, size, side walls, roll up sides, everything. It was everything I was looking for. And so I knew what this high tunnel would cost. The cost varies obviously by length. So I knew 96 feet. Actually, I had planned for 110. I could have got one up to 110 and it's still been free. And you'll understand what I mean by free. You may have already done it, you may already be getting my picture now. But when I actually went to lay it out, I realized 110 was going to be slightly too big, so I backed it down to 96. Part of me hopes that wasn't a mistake, but 96 was going to work better dimensionally in my farm space, and so that's what I went with. But since I backed down a little bit in my length of high tunnel, this was kind of you could say a blessing. I say it's a blessing. Is that I realized, okay, well, I backed down a little bit in size, but I'm still over the max, which means I'm still getting the max amount of money from the program. Therefore, I had a little extra room within that program. So what did I do? Well, if you watch the first half of this video, the end walls in this particular high tunnel system are extra. They're not part of the cost of the high tunnel because you can get various types of end walls. So they're add-ons. I was able to get both end walls included in that, in the price of the high tunnel that still fit within my program. Also, even though it's not on yet, it'll be on here in probably the 1st of May, I got the shade cloth for this high tunnel. So, like I said, this high tunnel is 21 feet wide by 96 feet long, and I got the shade cloth to cover it. And that shade cloth wasn't cheap. However, it fit within the program budget. So I ended up being able to get the full high tunnel, the both end wall systems, and the uh, shade cloth, as well as, again, if you watch the first part of this video, I bought a gas powered post hole driver to drive these posts of this high tunnel in, because they're driven in 3 feet in the ground. They're like chain link fence posts. So that $300 and some odd piece of equipment was covered in the grand scheme of this whole high tunnel process. So when I say free, I bought every single thing that this high tunnel had to, that I just mentioned, all the components, and it all fit within the budget of my program. And how that program works, and this is where it can get a little tricky depending on your cash flow and budget. The the NRCS program offers they call it advanced payment. So they will give you up to half of the money of the contract to aid you with your purchase. So they did. And so I had to put some other money with it in order to buy the high tunnel. But when I was done with the high tunnel, I got the other half of the contract. And the other half of if I'm being honest, not only did it cover the entire cost of everything I just mentioned in the high tunnel, but I got a little extra that I'm going to be able to use to buy the sprinkler system that I'm putting inside the irrigation sprinkler system that I'm going to put inside the high tunnel. So that's how I can say with all certainty that this high tunnel was 100% free. It is a process. You do have to put some money up front to get where you're going. Now, perhaps you could finance it and do it that way and then pay off the financing when you get the full contract. Whatever. Maybe you have the money laying around. Maybe you got a rich uncle. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Point being is you do have to put some of the money up front in order to get it, but you get all of that money back, and in my case, you get it all back plus some. And so therefore, that's why they call it cost share programs, because first of all, you have to put some money up front yourself, which shows that you're serious about what you're doing. But secondly, in certain circumstances, depending on the type of high tunnel you bought, it may not cover the full thing. So, in other words, let's just use a number. Let's say the high tunnel program was, let's say it was $20,000. If I bought a high tunnel system that was $25,000, doesn't matter. They were only going to give me 20. So therefore, a high tunnel would have cost me 5. Does that make sense? I hope it does. So they're only going to give you an X amount, whatever that contract is. But when you know that number up front, once you have that contract, you can then take that number and start your research about, okay, what can I do with that? Again, if you were to have done, if I would have gotten something less than 1,600 square feet of a high tunnel, then I would have only gotten the per footage price up to whatever my high tunnel size was. Doesn't matter how much it goes over the 1,600. It could have been a 10,000 square foot greenhouse. Doesn't matter. But they'll only pay up to that program limit, that contract limit of 1,600 and some odd square feet. Hope all of it makes sense. So we went from 2024 to basically starting the process with them, to learning about the fact we got our contracts approved in early 2025, to somewhere in the, I forget when I did it, in the summertime, beginning of summer, I think it was, when I got that upfront money and I went ahead and paid and bought for the high tunnel and had it delivered. It sat here for, honestly, probably 2 months before I ever started being able to work on it. I just had it sitting on the pallets that it came on. But once I got started, um, then yeah, just work through the process. If I were to get another one, I'm speaking, and I'll speak to that in a second too. But if I were to get another one from them, I think I would do myself a favor because of our summers and the busyness of our uh, spring summer season growing down here in farmers markets. I'd probably do myself a favor and wait till December, January, like it is right now, to try to put it together. That's just because of weather and time. And so I also say that to say this: I am applying for another one. Now, I will also say I've been told that my percentages for getting an additional one through that program are diminished. Why? Because I got one already. And they want to make sure that, people that are doing new farming, new and beginning farming, and meet other criteria, make sure they're getting theirs first. So it depends on the funding. Um, the government's budget every year with the funding and what have you. It depends on some other criteria. But I still have applied for another one. So they didn't stop me from applying for another one. The odds may have gone down for me to get it. Um, but yeah, so there's that. You can keep applying. It's not like it's a one and done necessarily. Excuse me. It could be, but it's not an absolute that it's one and done. One other little caveat about that advance payment. They give you, and the number may change year over year, I don't know, but they give you 90 days to use that advance payment to get started with what you took it for. I had to purchase the high tunnel and I had it dropped here, so it was ready to go when I was ready to go. If you don't do that, they will require the money back. And I only say that to say this: if you're going to enter into all of this, of course, your representative will explain it to you anyway. Please be careful and do yourself a favor and don't take the money unless you know you're ready to do it. Um, you definitely don't want to be giving money back. Uh, that just, yeah. Um, well, I will also say the reason that I ended up with a little surplus of money is obviously because I put it together myself. I didn't put out the what would have been a couple $1,000s, $2,000 to $3,000 to have it installed. I didn't put out that money, so I saved that money myself, and that's kind of built into their program system. They assume you're going to have it installed, but I didn't have to. You do have to, in order to get the total contract fulfilled and the rest of the money, they do have to come out and inspect it. So you would have had to have built it right. It would have to be to their NRCS standards. You have to prove that you're going to be growing in it, not doing some other kind of silliness in it. Um, if you ever see their initials when you look up the equip program, they're actually going to have the initials SHT, and that stands for seasonal high tunnel, because they consider this an extension of growing, to extend your seasons, early spring, late fall. Makes sense. I mean, that's really what it is for. And so yeah, so I think I've tried to cover all the nuances of everything that goes into the NRCS and trying to get your programs. Um, Hopefully, all of this was helpful, insightful, made sense. But by all means, if you have any questions, thoughts, comments, or different experiences, or getting ready to do it yourself, meaning getting ready to start a farm and do these things, please feel free to leave me a comment. Reach out and ask a question. If I know the answer, I'll certainly help you. Um, I The process is long, it's arduous. You have to have a lot of patience. You have to have some long-term vision. But if you just take the fact that this high tunnel was 100% free, I think it's worth it. And I'm getting a well and put in, and quite frankly, that well will also be 100% free. Um, that's just the money they give you. It covers the entire cost. So praise God. What a blessing, especially the small farmers. trying to get their farms up and running and off the ground good. So I hope this was helpful. I hope it was somewhat informative and enjoyable. And I just want to really thank you so much for taking your time to watch this video. I know it was a bit of a long one, especially if you watched the full thing, both parts, with my review of the high tunnel. Again, I will just say that this high tunnel came from Farmer's Friend, and I very much highly recommend them. Awesome company to deal with, super nice people, very quick to respond, very quick to ship. Their prices are straightforward and straight up, no hidden nonsense. You need help, you call them, you get a hold of somebody and you get help. I mean, it's really everything you want out of a company, I think you get out of them. So I just recommend them a lot. So if I could ask you, after watching a video this long, if possible, would you hit the like, subscribe, and share button? That would be awesome. As we begin this 2026 season, I really hope this high tunnel video is the kickoff to some very special things, special videos coming up. We're doing a lot of changes. Like I said, we're putting in for our organic certification here in just a matter of weeks now, a couple of weeks. We've got those trucks over there getting ready to drill our well. I'll be doing some video work on it. I just put up some new greenhouses for our growing space because we're going to be extending or expanding, I guess is the better word. We're going to be expanding our plant sales at the beginning of the season. So we sell fruit and vegetable plants, herbs, flowers, this kind of thing. And that's been going great. So we're going to increase it. And a lot of other quality changes. We've got some market changes coming up, and we'll discuss those in a future video. So I just want to thank you all so much for taking this much time to sit down and share your time with me. I appreciate it. So take care. God bless you. Have an amazing day in the Lord, and we'll see you in the next video.